Hello everyone! Today we are going to talk about the very last section in our Seacoast wrap, section 5. This is the waves wedge, so previously we've been increasing and decreasing on each side to keep this bias knit shape. At this point we will start decreasing on both sides so that we decrease towards this corner and create a triangle instead of another rectangle. So this is pretty much the exact opposite of our first section, right? So you can see here is the finished sample knit from a long time ago. We are knitting in this direction and we are going to knit from here to here, keeping that eyelet pattern, but decreasing on both of these edges. So we are going to keep the same pattern as we have before. Here is my project. I have added in my extra repeats, the same as I did for section 2. I did in section 4. The only difference being we're still going to slip this first stitch, but instead of increasing, we are going to decrease. So slip 1, knit 2 together, knit 1, and that was our 4-stitch border. Note that we decreased this middle stitch, so instead of 4 on the needles, we will have 3. And then we knit 2, yarn over, knit 2 together, all the way to the end, the same as we did before. So we want to stop this pattern at the last 4 stitches, in which we will decrease again. So I'm going to knit this pattern all the way over. So this will keep that same diagonal eyelet pattern, right? You will still see the eyelets knit on a bias. We are still keeping that, but instead of that increase one side, we are going to decrease. So you should end up with 2 fewer stitches each round, well, each row on the right side, rather than staying the same, right? Before we increased 1 stitch and decreased 1 stitch. So they balanced out, but created that nice bias shape and pattern. And this, while we are keeping the same pattern because we're knitting from the long side of the triangle in, we are also still creating a triangle instead. Now that is part of a whole separate topic of how to shape shawls, right? If you want to knit a triangle shawl, you are going to either decrease or increase on both sides evenly. If you want a longer tailed triangle, you're going to do more knitting in between each increase or decrease. Since we are increasing and decreasing pretty short, right? We're doing it every other row. We are going to have pretty much a right triangle. So that is something to experiment with if you would like to, right? If you wanted to have more of a tailed curve instead of creating this rectangle, you could make your tails longer. Maybe decrease and increase every other right side row. The world is pretty much your oyster in that regard. Even if you are more of a casual knitter, I do recommend looking at some of the resources for shawl shaping, for example, because they do get pretty interesting. How you get a shawl knit in the bias like this. How do you do a crescent shawl? How do you do a half circle? How do you do a pie shawl? I will have a pie shawl design coming out shortly. You will have to follow my shop to find out more on that one, since it is a published design. But very exciting, of course. So now we've gotten to the last 4. As we have before, we will knit 1, knit 2 together, and knit the last stitch. Now our wrong side row is still our same wrong side row, right? We are still going to slip 1, knit 3 for our 4-stitch border, purl all the way across, knit the last 4. And you're going to continue doing this until you have 10 stitches left. At that point, we no longer can stay in this nice eyelet pattern. We are going to convert to a pure stockinette background, the same as we did for the start of our shawl here. So for this little bitty corner here, remember we couldn't do the texture pattern yet. We stayed in stockinette until right around here. We are going to do the same thing for the other corner. At that point, you're going to continue doing the same kind of decreases where you're still slipping 1 to knit 2 together, knit across, knit 2 together, knit the last stitch. You're going to do that until you have 4 stitches left and then bind off. So happy knitting. I will be posting a picture of the finished shawl along with the original sample shawl on my Instagram and on the Facebook group if you'd like to see the finished designs there. And of course, go check those out too for all of the shawls that followed along with this. Thank you so much for participating. I really appreciate it. And I hope to see you again maybe in a future knit along. Bye!